so much for joining this lecture series. This is a continuation of the lecture series that we are having. Thank you so much for joining this lecture series. This is a continuation of the lecture series on Western political thinkers that we are having. We are starting with Plato, the father of Western political philosophy. In order to understand the class that we are going to discuss and the subsequent classes that we will have, you ought to understand the classes on a daily basis, on a regular basis. I mean the classes that we are having. In the last class, we have discussed about his background and the theory of form that he discussed. In order to understand this particular class better, I urge you to go and listen to the previous class that I have explained. In today's class, we will be discussing about Plato's theory of justice, which some scholars say it is often synonymous with righteousness or dharma, because righteousness or dharma are something that is coming from within. It's moral or ethical concept, rather than legal or the notion of justice that we see in the 21st century or in the modern era. It is not something external. It is not something that someone imposed upon. It is something that comes out from within. Plato arrives at his legal theory of justice in a dialectical manner. He will discuss with the well-known philosopher of those times. He will argue with them, synthesize with them, and comes out with thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, and will come out with his own theory of justice. He discusses with various thinkers or scholars of those times through debates with Glaucon, with Cephalus, Polemarchus, Thrasymachus, Glaucon. These are some of the scholars that he discussed with in his work, The Republic, and then comes out with his own version of justice. Plato, in his philosophy, gives very important place to the idea of justice. He was highly dissatisfied with the prevailing and degenerating condition of Athens. It was during this time that he saw the peak of war or conflict between the oligarch and the democracy, the government of the few versus the government of the many. The Athenian democracy was on the verge of decay and ruin. Fractionism, unrighteousness, injustice, and ignorance reigned supreme in his day. In order to establish a proper government, he need to understand the prevailing situation. He need to discuss with the well-known philosopher, and this is what he does. He discusses with the well-known philosophers, someone who may be smarter than him or who may be as good as him, in order to establish the theory of justice that he is after. The amateur meddlesomeness and the excessive individualism became main targets of Plato's attack, and the attack came in the form of constructing an ideal society in which justice reigns supreme. Since Plato believes justice to be the remedy for curing these evils, for him justice is very important, because when we later study, he classified human personality, or within ourselves, there are many classifications, and it is justice that connects all this. He gives a very important place to the idea of justice in his theory, even in the theory of education, even in his theory of the ideal state. Plato arrives at this theory of justice in a dialectical manner through debates with Cephalus, Thrasymachus, Glaucon, and even Polemarchus. Now he will discuss with these various philosophers, first with Cephalus. What Cephalus says. This is what Cephalus says, his belief, his idea of justice. According to Cephalus, he says, justice consists in speaking the truth, being honest in words and deeds, and paying one's debt. Thus, Cephalus identifies justice with right conduct. To speak the truth, to be honest, and to pay one's debt. That's Cephalus' idea of justice. What about Polemarchus? Polemarchus also holds the same view of justice like Cephalus, but with little difference. Polemarchus defined justice as doing good to one's friends and harm to one's enemies. Be good to your friend and harm your enemy. Understanding this idea of justice of both Cephalus and Polemarchus, Plato will come out with this, will counter the idea. Now this Polemarchus and Cephalus, they are giving their thesis. Plato will come out with antithesis. The viewpoint of Cephalus was criticized by Plato. That is antithesis of Plato. What was the antithesis of Plato? The antithesis of Plato was on the ground that there may be cases in which the formula may involve the violation of spirit of right. It might be harmful to speak the truth or return one's belonging when it is better to conceal it. Now let's take the example. Cephalus was saying that justice consists in speaking the truth. Justice consists in being honest in words and deeds and paying one's debt. But if someone wants to kill himself, you are hiding the knife or hiding the poison that someone is, maybe this is the poison. The bottle came back again, all right. This is the poison. And your friend wants to commit suicide. He is looking after this particular poison. Will you speak the truth that the bottle is with him? The poison is with you. The bottle that contains poison is with you. Will you speak the truth? Plato says, no, you cannot speak the truth in such situation. It might be harmful to speak the truth or refrain from holding one's belonging when it is better to conceal it. It is better to conceal the poison. It is better to hide the poison, even though it belongs to him, even though you are speaking the lie, even though you are not speaking the truth. It is better. It will be a violation in which the formula may involve the violation of the spirit of right. In case of Polemarchus, he says, Polemarchus' theory is also rejected by Plato, who points out that it is not justice that enables you to do good to your friend, but knowledge of things. That you may not be able to distinguish your true friend from enemies, because appearances are often deceptive, and that to do harm to anybody, even your enemy, is against morality and cannot be justice. Now, mind you, in the international arena, it is very difficult to say who is your friend. Vladimir Putin may be shaking hands with Joe Biden or with Donald Trump or with Obama, but you do not know the intention of Vladimir Putin. Xi Jinping may be shaking hands with Narendra Modi. He may be smiling and offering so many incentives and so many schemes, but you do not know the intention of the Chinese president. I'll cite you an example. If this is, in fact, not at all related to the subject that we are discussing, but let me just cite an example from here. A girl or a boy may approach you. You may not know his intention. He may smile and bring you lovely flowers, but you do not know what his intentions are, because appearances are often deceptive. You do not know the intention of others. But if you know the person properly, if you know the individual properly, then you know what kind of person he is. What kind of person he is, and by knowing him, by studying his intentions, you come to realize that yes, these are my friends, these are my enemies. So it is not justice that enables you to identify what is good, but it is the knowledge of things, knowledge of the particular individual that helps you to identify who is your friend and who is your enemy. And above that, Plato says, even if you know that he is your enemy, it is not good. It is against morality to do harm to that person, because it cannot be justice. That cannot be justice, because doing harm to an enemy is against morality and it cannot be justice. With that, let's move on to another philosopher of those days, that is Thrasymachus. Thrasymachus defines justice as the interest of the stronger or superior, which means might is right. Therefore, justice is whatever that is advantageous to the stronger, and where laws are made by the ruling class in its own interest and subject merely obeyed them, survival of the fittest. That was the idea given by Thrasymachus. who also talks about survival of the fittest. Give me an example. In A State of Nature, Thomas Hobbes talks about the survival of the fittest. Might is right was the prevailing situation in the Leviathan, the State of Nature, talked by Thomas Hobbes, which we will be discussing in the subsequent classes. So please pay attention and continue listening to this lecture. And by the way, if this lecture series that I'm delivering is helping you in any way, please do like, share, and subscribe. And it will encourage me to deliver more lectures. It will encourage me, it will give me boost to come out with more content. And if you have any suggestions, feel free to comment in the sections down below. With that, we move on to Glaucon, another philosopher, another scholar, who gave his idea of justice, and he says, gave his own concept of justice and described the evolution of society where justice as a necessity has become the shield of the weaker. He said the weak and the strong agree not to inflict wrong, and the weak not to suffer injustice. Thus, justice is conventional and law is justice. Now he is giving a new concept of justice where the poor, the weak, and the strong agrees to come together. The strong agree to act as a shield of the weaker. But Plato condemned both the thesis of Glaucon and Thrasymachus. Plato realized that all these theories that we have discussed, all these theories of Thrasymachus, Glaucon, Polemarchus, Cephalus, all the theses that they have presented contained one common element. They treated justice as something external. None of them carried it into the soul. Plato proved that justice does not depend upon any change, convention, or external force. Justice is not something external, it is something within your own soul. According to Plato, it is internal as it resides in human soul. It is therefore natural and not artificial, not born of fear of the weak, but of longing of human soul to do a duty according to its nature. Just